Thanks for staying with us. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro is facing international pressure to leave office, leaving opposition leader Juan Guaido to preside over the country. Several countries such as the United States, Canada, and the European Union are warning that he must call elections or they will officially recognize Guaido's leadership. Analyst still has a fight in the United Nations.
As the U.S. urged countries to back Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido, who has proclaimed himself president, Venezuela's foreign minister called for talks with the United States, even as he accused the United States and Europe of intervention and called for talks between the government and opposition. Washington has recognized the Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido as the South American nation's interim president and has asked President Nicolas Maduro, a socialist in power since 2013, to step down. 4 major European countries, Germany, Britain, France and Spain, have said they would recognize Guaido as interim president if elections are not called within 8 days. Arriaza pushed back, saying they had no authority to impose deadlines on Caracas. He called on France to focus on the Yellow Jacket protest and asked rhetorically who had voted Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez into office.
From
where do you get that you have any legal authority whatsoever to give deadlines or ultimatums to a sovereign people? From where do you get this? Why doesn't Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez hold elections like President Nicolas Maduro told him yesterday? Hold elections in the United Kingdom, I dare you. Why is President Macron, instead of focusing on the continuous Yellow Jacket protesters by French workers, focuses on attacking Venezuela? Now, when they see a worker wearing a yellow jacket near the charms working, the guards flee, afraid because they are scared of their own people. Focus on your own problems.
Guaido, who took the helm of the National Assembly on January the 5th, proclaimed himself interim president on Wednesday, though Maduro, who has led the oil-rich nation since 2013 and has the support of the armed forces, has refused to stand down. Maduro cruised to re-election in May last year amid low turnout and allegations of vote buying by the government. The domestic opposition, the United States, and right-leaning Latin American governments declined to recognize the result of the vote. Under Maduro, Venezuela has sunk into turmoil with food shortages and daily protests amid an economic and political crisis that has sparked mass immigration and inflation that is seen rising to 10 million% this year.
Let's turn now to Professor of History and Strategic Studies at the University of Lagos, David Awurawo. Thank you for joining us on Diplomatic Channel.
Thank you.
So these countries, the United States, Canada, the European Union, and some of those Latin American countries, are they right in putting these sorts of pressure on President Nicolas Maduro?
They are right, except that the approach is what is problematic. The substance is right. Maduro needs some intense pressure to be able to turn a different course or leave power. But the approach, to my mind, is wrong. Where you have 2 presidents in one country, you create a condition for anarchy. Anarchy. A country that already has humanitarian crisis on account of, the tensions of the past 2-3 years or so, now having 2 presidents. So the approach, to my mind, is wrong. Although Maduro needs some intense pressure.
Well, given that Maduro did ruin the country's economy for the period of time that he's been there, he's still one of the strongest leaders that Latin America has. He's never bowed to pressure from the West. He's never given in to any of the demands and so on. Could there be further damage, in his exit, even though it will be followed by a brief period of economic boom?
Certainly. You don't need to be an expert in economics and conflict management to understand the fact that in Venezuela, as things stand now, things will get worse until they get better. Why? Because before they resolve this impasse, things will get worse. Displaced persons will increase, refugees will expand, and the economy will take a turn for the worse. And when you also look at some details, the economy is dependent almost entirely on oil export. And oil export has gone down from about 2.1 million barrels per day on the average in the past 10 years to just a little over 1 million barrels per day in the past couple of months. So when one looks at all the dynamics, all the facts on the ground and the issues at stake, the conclusion simply would be that things will get worse until they get better.
The argument here, of course, is that Maduro conducted elections and he did not win and he's not willing to give up power. But do you think that, it is time for him to leave?
The time was long up for him to leave. But of course, dictators have their approaches, they have their style, and sometimes they want to buy time and all. So, but there are other issues connected to this. The ideological differences between the Venezuela, Hugo Chavez and then Maduro versus the United States especially and the rest of the West. That is a fundamental issue. Even if the elections were free and fair, the West, if you are the United States, will still have wanted some condition that will make them to do what they are doing, which is simply regime change. But when we look at the election, they were not free and fair, and so a fresh election should be called. But I think the time they are giving the man is too short. They probably need to give him some more time to plan for and conduct election. If he wins, he continues. If he doesn't win, he goes home.
Do you think a similar thing could happen with Venezuela as has happened with Libya, or do you think there's really no room for comparison here?
There could be, but there's a bit of difference. In the case of Libya, and that is astonishing. There seemed to have been no thought about what happened or what will happen after Gaddafi. And when Gaddafi left, the whole place, chaos and anarchy took over. There was simply no plan. But in this case of Venezuela, it's different because there is an opposition, the head of the National Assembly, who is there, who is willing to work with the West and all. And of course, as he's willing to work with the West, that also means that the economy will likely improve, oil export will expand and things like that. And the management of the economy, one expects, should improve. Because actually what happened in Venezuela is that they ate their tomorrow yesterday. When oil sold for $100 per barrel, they had the illusion that that was the right price for the sale of oil. Any rational leader will know that when oil sells for $100 per barrel, it is windfall. And you don't plan your future on windfall. You still plan on 665 and do some other things with the extra money that. So they ate their tomorrow yesterday. And so the consequence of what happened a couple of years ago is what Venezuelans are now suffering.
What should the UN do here? Because the Venezuelan foreign minister was at the UN Security Council where he lambasted Canada, the UK, Canada, the US, European countries, saying, they had their own issues to deal with. They should leave Venezuela alone. What position should the UN take, seeing that in the Security Council, you have veto powers who are for or against the Venezuelan president? The US on the side of, on the path against the Venezuelan president, and China and Russia for Maduro. Well,
as you can see, if you follow the debates at the UN on Saturday, you see that there were two camps. It was there was polarity. On the one side, those supported Hugo Chavez, where you have China, where you have Maduro. You have China, you have Russia, and a few other countries. On the other side, United States, and of course, many of the Western countries. So what the UN should do, to my mind, is to be guided by its set objective, saving succeeding generation from the scourge of war. Mediating delicately in such a way that it does not complicate and make an already nasty situation even nastier. And that is by getting the West not to rush into the path they are taking now, and also to get the other side to say, look, this man did not, the elections were not free and fair, and there is a need for another election. Let us come in, mediate, guide the way things are. Let another election be held. If the man wins, he continues. If the man loses, he goes home. Whoever wins. And that is the beauty of democracy.
Dr. Awurawu, thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you.
And that's the program this week. I'd love to hear or read your thoughts and comments. Please send them to @Amarachi_Ubani or @DiplomaticChan or @channelstv.com or on Twitter. I'll see you next time.